What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, AQUA Life Baby, you already know. And I'm here to bring you guys a brand new deck profile today. It's going to be on Scarlet Witch Coco, Susanoo, Oracle Think Tank, Stride. Big shout out to my boy Lazlo from Team Horizon for letting me borrow the deck so that we could bring the deck profile to you guys. Now, I have had personal experience with and against the deck, and I can honestly say that this deck is simply just good. I know the deck won ARG Connecticut a while back, and I know it's topped a few things. I think it topped the Bushiroad event as well. But it's just simply a good deck. If you're a defensive-minded player, I definitely suggest picking this deck up and playing with it because this deck involves immense draw power and ability to selectively add cards from your deck to your hand for, turtling for that nice defensive boost. But it also involves, a lot of just vanilla units. It's not a lot of technicalities in terms of, how you want to set up your field, things like that. It just involves like a lot of 10K, 8K vanillas and whatnot. And obviously the ever threatening Silent Tom. Your grade 1 lineup generally tutors to the fact that Silent Tom is your game is your game ender in Oracle Think Tanks. You want to get Silent Tom, you want to hold him into your hand, use him for pressure plays, and use him also to finish off your opponents. There's nothing better than stacking a crit on Silent Tom and then swinging for 21K, and your opponent can't use grade zeros to guard him. So there's that. But let's get into the deck, guys, because I'll explain more as I go along. Oh, and Aqua Force, I just have trouble against this deck if I'm unable to pressure them. Just pressure them effectively and things like that, because again, it's a long-winded fight, and I'm not trying to stay in the fight too long, for them to set up Silent Tom and whatnot. But let's get into the deck. All right, guys. So the starter is going to be Little Witch Lulu. She's the starter that you want to use for this deck because when you ride a grade 3 on top of her, she's not a forerunner until you ride a grade 3. So when you ride a grade 3 and she's in the soul, call her out to a rearguard circle, soul blast 2, and draw a card. So she starts off your draw power for you guys as soon as you hit grade 3. But I did find that the problem with this deck is that because she doesn't come out of the soul as a forerunner, and this deck doesn't build up too much advantage early game until you hit the grade 3. The deck is slow starting off in the early stages of the game, and I know I played against Royal Paladins, with Sword Me and friends and stuff, and I did have a bit of trouble starting off because their ability to speed to enter their speed phase at the beginning of the game as soon as they get a damage check of a Jewel Knight and whatnot, or just Violinist, cause pressure. But this card is still good overall. Just be mindful that this deck does have a little bit of a problem early game against Rush. 4 copies of Lodge's Magus because Lodge's Magus is probably the best heal trigger in OTT because its ability is when it boosts, it gains +3, so it'll become a 6K booster, and then at the end of the turn, you get to shuffle it back into your deck. So having a recurring heal trigger is very, very good. And next, the rest of the triggers is pretty simple, running 12 crit. That crit's for Magus. It just doesn't really matter what you run in that slot. 12 crit, and then we run 4 Luckbirds because Luckbird goes into the soul, draws, can help us hopefully top deck that Tom, top deck, that perfect guard that you need. You never know. So having Luckbird in there just in case you need to hope to top deck certain cards, maybe an extra trigger or two, is pretty good. All right, so there's that. All right, on to grade 1. Alright, guys, so for grade 1, run obviously 4 perfect guards. Now, I don't believe my boy has really worked on and updated the deck since set 1, but I can say since this deck is pretty much everything just from set 1, during set 1, the Cross and Dimension Police were pretty huge. Laurel, I still think Laurel is pretty huge, and, the Cross at a lot of major terms is still there, but, these perfect guards do unflip damage, but they only protect the Vanguard, and these guys can protect rear guards. And in an effort to fight against Laurel and the Cross, these two guards were inserted into the deck. But the meta has changed quite a bit, and especially at least around our area, nobody's playing Dimension Police. Nobody's playing. Nobody's really playing the cross like that. Kagero is still being played quite a bit, but no one's really playing the cross or worrying about them attacking the rear guard. I think that phase is a little bit over with now, so it's still pretty good. But for me, guys, if I were to own this deck, I would probably just put in 2 more of these because we do want to unflip damage because, again, I said this deck is quite counterblast heavy. So just that. Rest is just 4 stride enablers. Search out Susanoo when you call it the rear guard circle by ditching by revealing a grade 3. And then we run 6 8K vanillas. I know, you've never seen that before. Yeah, AK Vanillas, because, again, Silent Tom is the best card in the deck. Best standalone card in the deck. You know, for its ability of being able to restrict, you know, with guard restriction. And we want to be able to tutor to our best rear guard, to our game ender. We want to be able to tutor to that, to his ability. So we run the 8K vanillas. Not only are they solid boosters, and this deck can definitely hit cross rides quite easily, but again, we want Silent Tom to be a 16K column since Silent Tom is an 8K. Thank God he's not a 9K. But we want to be able to hit 16K columns on these 11K Vanguards, which is why we run him, to make Silent Tom that much more deadly. All right, grade 2. All right, guys, so grade 2, we are running 3 copies of the 10K Vanilla. Not too much you can put in these grade 2 slots. 10K Vanilla is just a very solid ride target and good in the rear guard. Playing Aqua Force, you know, one time I know I was playing against this deck. My opponent had 2 these on the rear guard circles, and I was going to do my Lambros play where I would swing Tidal or Magnum at the rear guard, Stacia at another rear guard, then Vanguard attack with something else and whatnot. But because they're 10K, I can't necessarily poke them with a 9. I can't poke them with a 9K. So that did kind of ruin that play. And when I did, you know, was able to swing with Lambros or swing with like an 11K or something like that, it did present them an extra total of 10,000 shielding because they are able to intercept. So just keep that in mind, that these guys are very good ride targets, but also can be good against poke columns on the rear guard as well. And then we run 4 copies of the 12K attacker. The reason why he doesn't run the Generation Break Counterblast 1 draw card is because I think that card is dead quite a lot of the times. Yeah, the deck is very counterblast heavy between Takumi Mizuchi, Susanoo, and Coco. The deck is just very counterblast heavy, and that card for a counterblast 1 just to draw 1 card isn't, you know, all that great. And just having some, you know, pure vanilla raw power behind your attacks, and since we're running 12 crit, stacking that on, you know, these types of cards is very, very good. Very good. Plus, again, like I said, this deck can hit really solid and high numbers. And then we run, obviously, 4 Silent Tom. Got the one from set 2 in here, too. Silent Tom is the best rear guard in the deck, hands down. Probably the best card in the deck to me. Because Vanguard or rear guard, your opponent cannot use grade 0 units to guard him. If you're grade stuck on Silent Tom, and you throw an 8K booster behind him while you're grade stuck playing the grade 2 game, you have a Vanguard column that cannot be guarded by grade 0s. That means your opponent is going to have trouble playing the grade 2 game against him on the defensive side due to the fact that they cannot throw down trigger units to block him. They can only intercept or drop grade 1s or perfect guard and whatnot. So this guy is definitely a good option to ride if you're planning on playing the grade 2 game. Otherwise, I try to go for something else and save him for when you're able to make your rear guard columns and you're going into late game. But Silent Tom is probably literally one of the most devastating cards in the history of Vanguard due to his ability since set 2. And I know he got limited in Japan at one point to 2, I believe it was. But nothing to say. If you guys are playing OTT, he's about $11 right now. You got to pick up 4 copies of this card. Spend that $44 because it's worth it. All right, grade 3. All right, guys. So for grade 3, we play 4 copies of Scarlet Witch Coco. She is from set 2, I believe, as well. And what she does is her continues to build in Vanguard. If you have no cards in your soul, she gains 3K. So she'll be at a 13K base on your turn, meaning that with all the 8K vanillas that we're running, having an 8K vanilla behind her when you have no soul, that's a 21K column if you're not striding. So that's very, very good. But her other skill is when you ride her, you counterblast 2, and if you have 1 or less cards in your soul, you get to draw 2 cards. That's why we run Little Witch Lulu as a starter, because when Lulu comes out of the soul, you Soul Blast 2, emptying your soul and drawing a card. Then her skill, Counterblasting 2, if you have it, Counterblast 2, draw 2 cards. So as soon as you ride Coco, you go +3. You draw 3 cards. That's really good, and it gets you back that defense. She starts up your defensive plays. But other than that, she's a 10K Vanguard, and you don't want to sit on her for too long, which is why we have our main card. Supreme Heavenly Battle Deity, Susanoo. Now, Susanoo's the new boss, the new leading boss unit for OTT. So what he does is on GB2, continuous ability at any time when you have 4 or more cards in your hand, he has 5,000 and an extra crit. So if you have 3 cards in your hand and you do a drive check with him, and that's going to be another card into your hand, that means that his ability will be activated and he will gain 5,000 to crit. So that'll be kind of like you drive checking a crit trigger and putting it on him. So just be mindful of that. And then his on stride ability is when you stride on him, you counterblast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand, put the other one at the bottom. Simple. He stacks a deck kind of like Suki. He's very popular again in the Tsukiyomi builds as well, because it's all about stacking. But this deck doesn't care about stacking triggers and whatnot at the bottom, because we're not trying to play that whole mind game of remembering the stack divination and stuff. We're not trying to go in for that. We're trying to build up a defense and pressure our opponent with our nice solid vanilla columns and Silent Tom, and get game, because against some decks we just don't want to get too long into battle with unless we have to. So we want to do. Plus we have Lozenge Makers who we want to keep circulating as a recurring heal trigger. So we will be shuffling the deck when we can get her onto the field. All right, but there's that, and let's get into Stride. All right, guys, and for the Stride deck, we are running 2 copies of Rain Cloud Calling 9-Headed Dragon King. Now, he's running this card, I believe, because there are times in OTT where you're just sitting there, you're drawing into all these triggers, or you're just drawing into nothing but grade 3s and whatnot, and whether you need defense or you need something to attack with, this guy's pretty good, because what he does is after the battle that he attacked, you get to counterblast 1, choose up to 3 cards in your hand, and send them back into your deck, shuffle your deck, and then draw that same amount of cards. So this guy can definitely give you a chance at fixing your hands. Shuffling grade 3s in your deck doesn't sound that great, but when it's late in the game, your opponent's pressuring you with like Saint Blow and Olivia and things like that, you need to have, the grade 3s aren't going to do anything for you, and you need to hopefully that you can draw into some triggers or some perfect guards so that you can defend and move on to the next turn. So definitely that. 2 copies of Kieran. What he does is when he hits, you get to look at the top 2, add 1 to hand, stack 1 at the bottom. So he's just a solid on hit +1 type of card. Not too bad. Sometimes opponents don't really mind letting him hit because all you're doing is adding cards to hand, but people who've played against this deck and whatnot know that this deck does run 12 crits, so having him hit can suck, but also getting another card into your hand for defensive purposes on top of the pressure that he put on you through his attack can start to overwhelm you as the game goes on. And then last but not least, we have Sword Deity of the Thunderbreak, Take Minazuchi. He's a pretty simple card. So what he does is, for a Persona Flip and Counterblast 2, you look at the top 4 cards, add 2 of them to your hand, stack the rest at the bottom. He's pretty much just a +2 on stride. Now, when I say this deck is very counterblast heavy, he costs a counterblast, he costs 2 counterblasts, and Coco costs 2 counterblasts. And since you'll be defending a lot, you don't want to take too much damage, obviously, especially in this meta, but you know, you don't really use him exactly that often unless you're, you know, able to, because, you know, you combine him and him together and that's 3 countermeasures for 3 cards. And how much worth is it, you know, at a certain point in the game? It might be worth it for defensive purposes if your back's against the wall, but this guy, you know, generally when I've played with the deck, I've only had the opportunity of using him once at that. So you could probably just run 2 of him and then run, you know, maybe an extra Kieran or 2 or Madhu or whatever it is, because it is very canvas heavy, but he's just not a bad card. My boy just has 4, you know, better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it at 4, I would guess. All right, but that's the deck profile, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And next deck profile I got for you, gonna be an update on my boy Black Steve's Nova Grappler's Victor Stride deck. We've been working on the deck, and it's running pretty well right now. And next video as well, I have a discussion about the state of Link Jokers with me right now. Same with Bermuda Triangles, and I will do a card review because I saw that new Blue Storm Perfect Guard today, bruh. All right, so we're gonna get into all that new Aqua Life and Link Life in the coming videos. All right, Cardfight King and I'm out. Peace.